So we're here at HKC, one of the world's largest LCD panel manufacturers, to check out one of their really exciting new developments, which is RGB Mini-LED gaming monitors. They've got at least one of them on show here, a 4K model. We're also going to check out their version of the 1440p 500Hz with a slightly higher refresh rate than some of the other brands that we've seen. Now, you might not have heard of HKC necessarily because they're only just starting to enter the Western market with products such as the Kurui line. We recently reviewed one of the Kurui monitors. They've also got Ant Gamer and their own in-house HKC brand. But what they tend to do at these trade shows is show off brand new panels that we've never seen before. So even though they are an OEM for a lot of other brands, they tend to just have lots of really exciting stuff. So let's go take a look. Our CES coverage is brought to you by MSI's excellent QD-OLED gaming monitors. Offering perfect blacks, infinite contrast, and lightning-fast response times, MSI QD-OLED monitors are the best way to level up your gaming experience. And there are options available for everyone, whether you're after an incredible 4K panel, a blistering 500Hz refresh rate, or a new ultra-wide with an RGB stripe. They all have the latest features like True HDR, a custom graphene film to cool the display, and HDMI 2.1 with full console support. Check the links below to learn more about MSI QD-OLEDs.
Also supporting our CES coverage is Thermal Grizzly and their Cryo Sheet, an excellent alternative to thermal pastes, and because they don't use any liquid, they can never dry out. These graphene thermal pads offer very high thermal conductivity, are easy to use, are extremely durable, and can be used to maximize your CPU and/or GPU's cooling performance. So for more information, please check the links in the video description. We'd also like to thank Endorphy, creators of the award-winning Fluctus fans, available in both 120 and 140mm. These high-performance fans are designed to move air efficiently in dense spaces, with focused airflow and reduced noise. Perfect for CPU, power supplies, PC cases, and more. So to learn more, please click the links in the video description.
So CES 2026 has been filled with a lot of world's first monitors and a lot of new panel formats, and that's no exception here at the HKC booth. So what we're seeing here is the M10 Ultra. Fantastic name, really easy to remember, no letters and numbers salad. Maybe it has a longer product name, but M10 Ultra, super easy to remember. So the cool thing about this, as you might see from this sign that they've got down the bottom here, it is an RGB Mini-LED monitor, the first that we've seen that uses RGB Mini-LED. So what's the difference between normal Mini-LEDs and RGB Mini-LEDs? Well, on a normal Mini-LED monitor, you just use a variety of white LEDs. So there's no color control for that backlight, you just get white output. It dims depending on the content that you're seeing on screen, but that's all the control that they have. With RGB Mini-LED, which you might have seen across a variety of TVs this year as well, you get individual control of the red, green, and blue components as part of the Mini-LED backlight. So this isn't a replacement for OLED. We've seen a bit of confusion about that. It's not like they're doing micro LED type things. It just means that the individual zones, instead of having one white LED, have red, green, and blue controllable LEDs. So if you're seeing, on screen here, we've got this nice chameleon here that's largely red. With the RGB Mini-LED, the Mini-LED backlight can show you red when it's showing red, or it can come out as being green when it's showing green. And that allows this panel to boost its color performance, boost its color vibrance. So for example, this panel is quoted to have 100% Rec 2020 coverage, and that's due to the RGB Mini-LED backlight. I'm not sure how that will go in general. We have seen some demos here. I think there's one from LG Display which sort of showed some limitations of this panel depending on the colors, well, not this specific panel, but RGB Mini-LEDs in some certain scenarios. But if you're in these ideal scenes where you've got a lot of green, a lot of vibrant colors, that's when the RGB zones can really come to the forefront and provide a really solid benefit in terms of color volume. So I've also been told this panel has 4,788 RGB zones for 1,596 total zones. So effectively what that means is there's 1,596 LED elements inside this panel. So that's the number of, for example, white dimming zones that you would have. But then because there's individual RGB LEDs inside each of those mini LEDs, you end up with these 4,788 RGB zones. So the best comparison there is probably not the 4,000 number, but more the 1,596 number in terms of how it's going to look compared to other mini LED monitors. And the good news for people, at least in terms of the color performance, is this is also a VA LCD. So that's what we've been told, VA LCD panel. The viewing angles are quite good for a VA LCD, so we'll have to see whether this is new VA technology or something. Again, it's kind of hard to tell in a show floor environment exactly what the viewing angles are like, but it looks pretty good to me. 1000 nits full screen brightness will be possible, 1600 nits peak brightness, and it's a 4K panel, 165 Hz with a 330 Hz dual mode, I believe. So that's at 1080p, of course. So I don't have the native contrast spec, but I would imagine quite high. But the combination of the VA LCD along with 1596 Mini-LED zones, which would be one of the highest I've seen from a VA LCD. I'm thinking, what was the last one I saw? Maybe 1196 on like a Samsung monitor. So this will be not only giving you that nice native contrast ratio, but yeah, the high local dimming zone count. And you don't need as many zones with a VA LCD to get the same sort of performance as with an IPS LCD that uses Mini-LED. So I've been told this monitor will be available at some point in the second half of 2026. Now, because we're here at HKC, nothing really is a given in terms of where these products will be released. Almost certainly this will come to the Chinese market, but if we're talking about like Europe, North America, and even Australia, who knows? I mean, I hope they release it. I hope they bring it to those markets, because we haven't seen this in any other monitor brand. So if you've got a world first, I mean, you may as well bring it to a wide market. I don't have pricing information just yet either. HKC is not divulging that information just yet. But because we're talking about a 4K VA LCD with a high zone count, RGB Mini-LED, I think this will be quite attractive for a lot of people that want that, you know, monitor for productivity work, monitor for gaming. It will depend on things like response times, of course. So yeah, super keen. I want to review this. So I hope even if it's only available in the Chinese market that they send one out anyway. We'll see how that goes. But anyway, let's get to some other monitors. So this is another one of the HKC monitors that we're seeing at CES 2026. This is under the Ant Gamer brand. So this is the Ant 275PQ Ultra, another one of the 1440p 500 Hz type monitors that we've seen at the show. This one has slightly higher refresh rate specifications than we've seen from some of the other brands. So 1440p 540 Hz, and then a dual mode to 720p 1080 Hz. So the story of the show so far has been we saw Acer. They were doing 1440p 500 Hz and 720p 1000 Hz. Then we saw Samsung doing 1440p 540 Hz and 1080p 1040 Hz. And now this model does 1080 Hz. So very slightly higher, which will mean in those games, those esports type titles, you'll be able to see slightly better. So the other specification that we've got, of course, IPS LCD at 27 inches in size. It is also HDR 600 certified, or display HDR 600 sort of spec. So they tell me here at HKC that it will have 8 edge-lit local dimming zones. So that's good, because we've also seen similar panels from some of the other brands without really knowing what sort of panel hardware will be inside. But if this is indeed the same panel as those other models, that would mean 8 edge-lit zones. It should also be launching around the sort of June, July timeframe from what I'm being told, with a worldwide release actually. Not all HKC monitors get a worldwide release, but this one should be available. So the main question that we've had with these sorts of monitors, which applies to this and also the other ones, is whether the IPS LCD panel can support the response times required to run at 540 Hz, but especially 1080 Hz. What we saw from that Acer model in the UFO test shot wasn't the best results, but that could vary from OEM to OEM. So it'll really depend on the response time tuning. I don't really think that the response times will support the 1000 Hz refresh rate. 540 Hz is a maybe, depending on how well they do with that. But yeah, it's just cool to see more dual mode monitors, and this is another option that will be available to you, especially if you wanted the silver design, because this does have silver highlights on both the stand and the rear. Looks okay. We'll see how it goes later. And just lastly, we'll briefly touch on the HKC M9 Pro. First of all, great name, M9 Pro. Very easy to remember, no letters and numbers salad on this one. So super easy, super searchable. This continues the story of what we've seen throughout CES 2026 of 5K monitors. Every brand now is releasing a 5K display, and what's been really interesting is that all the specifications are very slightly different between the different panel manufacturers. So HKC have gone with a 180 Hz mode at 5K, so a lot of the other brands are using 165 Hz. I think we saw Asus also go with a 180 Hz panel. I believe this will also be dual mode potentially, though it's not on the spec sheet here. It is also HDR 1400 certified. Well, it's going to have display HDR 1400 class brightness. We'll see whether they get certified later. So that means, of course, at least 1400 nits. And I believe this is also Mini-LED, probably using the same sort of backlight as we saw from the MSI model with 2304 zones. It's also glossy like the MSI model. This is not a screen, protecting coating from the factory or whatever. This is actually a glossy unit like we see from MSI. So I don't have too many more details on this one, but yeah, another 5K display, potentially available in different regions. We'll have to see how that goes. All right, that does it for the HKC booth here at CES 2026. Hopefully we'll be able to get our hands on all of these products to take a look at throughout this year. It's always a little dicey with some of these brands because HKC only release some products in the Western market. Some of them are China exclusive, but I've told them that regardless of whether things like the M10 Ultra are available worldwide or just in China, please send it to me anyway, because I'm super interested in the RGB Mini-LED technology. So hopefully we will be able to check that out at some point, and hopefully as well they do just release them to the global market, because I think there's some pretty exciting products. So yeah, that's it for this one. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.